Bay Buccaneers. And they're the cannons come. Fire them. Keep on firing them. Brady throws a deep pass. It's a caught ball. Touchdown Tampa Bay. Mike Evans.
We came down in 2014. We opened up the wing box.
They got the loaded fries. We got buffalo wings.
Cannon Fire Podcast, brother. If you ain't watching, you ain't listening, and you're missing out. Woo!
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to a brand new edition of the Cannon Fire Podcast, live on YouTube today from the Cannon Fire Watch Party at Barriehaus Beer Company in beautiful Ybor City. Wrapping things up with our guys over here. A pretty good turnout, but obviously you wish the product on the field was a little bit better. Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, as always, Rhett Matthew, joined alongside me, my good buddy and co-host, the Philly Bucs fan himself, Mr. Evan Wanish. And down there at the end, we have got very special guest, James Hill, a.k.a. Mr. Bucs Nation. So let's go ahead and talk about this game. I guess we might as well not waste any time. We waited for this disaster of an overtime contest between the Steelers and the Lions to finish. I mean, man, there were 2 minutes left on the clock, and we said multiple times, we're like, oh yeah, you know, we're probably just gonna go live whenever this game is over. And that last 2 minutes of clock took probably 20 minutes. I mean, it didn't seem like either team wanted to win that game. And I'll tell you, the comedic fashion of Pittsburgh and Detroit really makes me feel better about the loss that the Buccaneers had today, which we'll talk about here shortly. But, yeah, man, that was a disaster between those two teams.
I truly believe that wasn't going to end. It just wasn't going to end.
The game's actually still going.
Yeah.
They fooled all of us.
Yeah, so, I mean, what was worse? The Steelers at home losing the 0-8 Lions or this Bucs loss? I don't know. We'll get into it, though, but overall just a pretty frustrating day for a lot of Bucs fans here at Barriehaus and for, the Bucs themselves.
Yeah, let's go ahead and, look at what went wrong for Tampa Bay in this game. We said the entire day it felt like a weird game because a lot of things went wrong. Murphy's Law kicked in today where everything that could go wrong for Tampa Bay did go wrong. But the weirdest part of all of it is, like, you don't even entirely know who to blame. It's hard to put all of the blame on one part of this team. When you look back at the Saints game and we talk about the reason the Bucs lost that one, penalties, costly penalties, just undisciplined football at times is really the biggest thing that lost them that game. But in this one, they dug themselves into a hole early on in this one. They couldn't get themselves back out of it, but it felt like the offensive play calling couldn't ever get anywhere. The defense, we credited them, the halftime report with James' live stream, if you're checking in from there. And I thought the defense did what they could for the most part until the very end of this game when Washington decided to take 10 minutes off of the clock in the longest drive of the NFL season thus far to ultimately beat Tampa Bay. I mean, these guys were gassed on defense on that last drive. But from top to bottom, just a mediocre performance. This isn't at all what this team should have looked like coming out of the bye week. And I don't know if we can, now that the game is over, label it a trap game. I don't know if that's necessarily what you call it. But at the end of the day, the execution for Tampa Bay just was not there. And 29-19, your final score once again.
Yeah, you said it best. You didn't really call it a trap game, but it kind of was a trap game. We didn't call it beforehand, but I guess we should have. Right? I don't know, man. I just something like we said. We talked about. It's weird because you can't pinpoint one thing. It really is a team loss. Offense started off slow, and the defense, while they're gassed, you gotta get off the field. You can't let them have a 10-minute drive. The offense actually played decent in the second half. They didn't get the ball back. So after the Mike Evans touchdown, they never received the ball back. So just can't really happen and just not enough, And if they were playing a better football team, they're blown out, right? I mean, this isn't even close. So the fact that they were playing a 2-6 football team, that's the only reason that this was a 10-point loss and not a 25-point loss.
James, I want to get your thoughts on the game. You were our guy on the spot. You were doing your live play-by-play. So if anybody got a good taste of what was going on this week, it was you. So what were your thoughts on this week's game?
It was just frustrating, man. For the first half, it was the offense, right? Oh, my gosh, crazy start to the game where they had a 3-and-out. The defense had to come back on. Okay, the Washington football team scores. Buccaneers offense comes back out. They throw a really weird, fluky interception off of a pass, thrown up into the air essentially on a hit from Jalen Darden. That gets intercepted. Defense comes back out onto the field. Washington football team goes, I believe they score again. Offense comes back out onto the field. They throw another interception. Defense comes back out onto the field. So, Rhett, you talked about the defense being gassed there towards the end of the game. It makes sense, right? Because they were, that first quarter, that first half, really, they were having to be out there a lot. And I think that was the most frustrating thing, is that this team did not play like a complete football team throughout any stretch of the game. The first half, the offense struggled. Throughout the second half, the defense struggled because the offense struggled in the first half, and it was just a lack of a complete game that you see from good teams. And the Buccaneers didn't showcase that today.
And obviously, if the Bucs want to play a complete game for 60 minutes, that's the goal every single week, right? In 2020, when they won the Super Bowl, it took them until the Super Bowl to probably put together the most complete game they had all season. I mean, you look at the Lions in the regular season, when they walloped those guys 47-7, you could say that was the most complete game that they had, but it takes a while to get to that point, right? So by no means did they have to go play a complete mistake-free football game, but just better than you did against a 2-6 team. Like, on the pregame show, I think the expectation this week, honestly, was that the Bucs were going to air it out. And looking at the offensive play calling, it really seemed like Brady wasn't taking any shots downfield. I mean, I saw Leonard Fournette get more targets this week than I've seen him get the entire first half of the season, it felt like. And there just wasn't any momentum at all on offense. He had a couple of big plays over the middle, but I think Brady's biggest incompletion was for like 15 yards. And it just, it's crazy because it's a 2-6 football team. Obviously, that's not going to cut it, but the fact that penalties came up when they did, back-breaking penalties that extended the drive for Washington and gassed out the defense, and then your first half offense ultimately just put them in a hole that they could not dig themselves out of. We've seen this Bucs team dig themselves out of larger holes than they did, being behind, I think, 13 points at most at one time in this game. But, I don't know, man. This just didn't look like a football team fresh off of a bye week, and this has to be a turning point because this is a game that everybody and their mom picked the Bucs to win this week. You come into this one, you're the heavy favorite, and you go out there and crap the bed off of the bye week like that. There's definitely some concern. I will say a lot of fans, we might have to put them on suicide watch or something, man. I mean, they're ready to go jump off of the skyway.
Completely jump ship.
Right? It's 6-3. The Bucs were 7-5 at the break last year, and they still won a ring. So, let's pump the brakes. Let's take what we're given here. A 6-3 record is what it is after 9 games.
It's not where you want to be, but it's not
where
the
you
end
want
of
to
the
be. As far as the 1 seed goes,
that's
probably the biggest disappointment to come out of this week. Is that for the Bucs? Last week, seeing all these other teams win who needed to win to beat these NFC teams to help the Bucs get the 1 seed come the playoffs. All of that work was kind of diminished by them not going out there and winning today. So, winning the division is still definitely realistic, but, something's got to change for the Bucs down the road because they cannot keep losing games like this. That's for damn sure.
Well, for everybody who wants to, say, oh, man, season's over. This is it. This team's terrible. Like you said, the Bucs were 7-5 at their last break. And, look, this happens to teams. It does.
I think it's also let's not forget that a lot of the people who think the Bucs are done this time of the season are new fans, and they just don't have any miles on them. Right?
Right.
Like, this is the first heartbreaking loss they've the first of a couple of heartbreaking losses they've had as Tom Brady as the quarterback, and that's new for a lot of these new Bucs fans.
Well, here's the thing too. I know that people are going to say, man, the Bucs losses, they're so frustrating. They're not playing like a good team. Every single good team in the league has frustrating losses. Nobody's going to go, not all the good teams are all going to go undefeated. Every good team has frustrating losses. That's just a fact. The Ravens just lost to the Dolphins. The Bills just lost to the Jaguars last week. These things happen to good teams where there's frustrating losses. So the Bucs aren't the only team that has, losses that make you go, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Every fan base deals with stuff like that. So at the end of the day, whenever you put it into a greater context of a situation, whenever you look around the league, the Bucs are still in a good spot.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about that a lot during your live stream, how, this happens. It's not going to be perfect. However, Right now, they're not a great football team. Right now, they're not there because if they were a great football team, you don't lose this game, right? You don't go in and you don't lose this game. They still have not scored over 30 points on the road yet. Their road woes continue, and just it couldn't happen. Both sides of the ball just did not play well enough, came out flat, and you said it looked like a team coming off a bye week. Well, Washington was coming off a bye week too.
Yeah.
So, they looked ready to go, so why weren't the Bucs? And I think that's a lot on coaching as well.
I think one more thing to take away from this is we look at the teams who are playing the Bucs. You look at a team like Washington, who is so far behind in their division. Yeah, maybe their playoff hopes have kind of sailed off into the sunset, but they're still going to step up every single week and play the best that they can play. And for all of these teams who saw the Bucs of all teams on their schedule at the beginning of the year, that's their Super Bowl, right? A lot of these bad teams want to make a statement and come out here and contend against the defending Super Bowl champions, who throughout the first 7 weeks of the season looked like one of the best teams in the NFL up until today. But, it's a big deal for Washington to go out there and win this game, regardless of their playoff seeding, if they're even going to make it, which they probably won't. But, teams are playing their best football of the year when the Bucs come to town, and that's just something else that,
that's on the Bucs to step up then.
Yeah.
That's on the Bucs to be ready and play like a champion. Play like the defending champion. Because right now they're not, right? Right now, if you look at this team, if you were brand new and you had no recollection of what happened last season, you would think that this team is a slightly above average team, right? Yeah. You would think that this team, if they make the playoffs, maybe they get bounced in the first round, maybe they get out of the first round, right? They're not playing like the defending champions right now, and it needs to get better.
100% it does. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the stat lines from today's game. We'll start with the quarterback, Tom Brady. 23 for 34, 220 total yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Those 2 interceptions in the first half, I think probably hurt them a lot more than, the Ryan Suckup missed PAT down the stretch. That made it a little bit more out of reach as this game came down to it, but it's just tough to recover. That second Brady interception was the last thing you needed, and he went out there and threw a pick. And, the first one was, again, the bobbled football that bounces up in the air because Jalen Darden can't reel it in. The amount of drops today that the Buccaneers had on offense as well. Leonard Fournette, he is not forgiven for the drops that he had early on in this one. It set up quick drives. The Bucs offense was just not able to get anything going, but those interceptions were really I think the biggest stinker of that first half.
Yeah, and another fluky interception for Tom Brady, right?
The type of picks that only happen to Tampa quarterbacks.
Right. It's the second one, that's a pure pick, right? That's an overthrow. But then of course, the first one goes right out of Jalen Darden's hands. I don't even know if it would have hit the ground. I don't even know if Darden possessed it long enough for it to be considered complete. But of course, that's what happened. James, what did you think of Tom Brady's performance today? Really didn't throw the ball down the field much against this dead last pass defense. Didn't really throw the ball down the field much. What'd you think?
Yeah, it was an interesting situation, right? The first half, you would say he did not play good, right? He didn't play good. Even if you took away the 2 interceptions, I felt that it wasn't a good first half for Brady. But then the second half, he came back in. He really did well. One thing that I noticed was a lot of people were talking about, man, Brady's just checking it down time and time and time again. Me and you talked about this, Evan, during my live stream, was maybe that's just because Brady didn't like the looks that he was getting towards the middle and, deep parts of the field. It might have just been a really good game plan by the Washington football team, considering, it's what the Buccaneers like to do. They like to, throw the middle, shots, take their deep shots whenever they get chances to, and it could have just been a situation where that was Brady's options, right, was to do the check down situations and whatnot. So it was frustrating. All in all, I think Brady ended up being all right at the end of the game. He was fine, Could he have done more? Absolutely, but he did get them to a point to where they all, had a chance to tie up the ball game or potentially even win the ball game towards the end there. So at the end of the day, I think he did fine, all things considered.
Yeah, I think the Bucs totally expected to get the ball back at the end of the game. The way Washington was going down the field, it was one of those things where we knew they were going to chew clock, but I think there was a certain moment where it was almost like, okay, maybe they can chew too much clock here, right? Like maybe they can bite themselves in the ass by chewing clock and either not getting it done or just coming away with 3 points, which would have made it a 7-point game at that point. So, I think the Bucs kind of assumed that Brady was going to get the ball back. We saw Bruce Arians burn those timeouts kind of early, in my opinion. I think the 4 3-minute mark was 2 of them, and then that last one came within the 2-minute warning, if I remember correctly. So I think the Bucs were just planning to get him out there, and he probably may have been able to salvage something, but I mean, it's one of those things too where, like, how much do you really trust this offense, or how much do you really trust this defense after what they had shown you all afternoon? Like that last drive for Washington, I told you so many times, like, I don't trust the defense right now. And continually on 3rd down in particular, Washington found a way to make it happen. And before I toss it to you, Evan, one more thing I want to point out. It was a 10-minute drive for Washington at the end of the game. It was 11 total 3rd down conversions for Taylor Heineke and the Washington offense today. I mean, that is just inexcusable. Some of these 3rd downs were just ridiculous.
Yeah, I think a lot of it was their 1st and 2nd down. They had a few 2nd and longs, and the issue was you would turn 2nd and long into 3rd and short, and then they would just convert on the 3rd and short. So as an offense, after that Mike Evans touchdown, you're expecting to get the ball back, right? You're not expecting a 10-minute drive right out of the gate. So, that's where the defense has to step up. I understand that, at the end they're gassed. Like, I get it. But you need to stop, right? That's the longest drive in the NFL this season for a reason, right? You need to stop, and they didn't get it. And who knows what would have happened if that offense would have got the ball back? Who knows? But they didn't get a chance. I mean, they got the ball with, 28 seconds, no timeouts. They after that was after Washington scored a touchdown, which made it 10. Just an inexcusable drive by the defense. 19 plays, I believe, on that drive. Just that was ridiculous, and that's something that it's got to be better. I mean, obviously that hasn't happened all year. That's not going to happen every game, but in this particular moment, you needed one stop, and you just consistently couldn't get it.
So let's, before we go any further with updates from today's game, let's go ahead and take a look at the silver lining from some of the other contests today. The New Orleans Saints lost, huh? How about that? Can we get a round of applause?
Yeah,
Saints
that's right.
F the Saints.
Yeah,
those guys suck.
The Bucs still have the game lead over the South now.
Yeah,
With the Saints loss, it doesn't really.
Carolina and Cam Newton really bringing it to Arizona right now. Somebody in the live chat said that they may or may not have their backups in for Arizona already. I don't know if that's true, but 17-0, the current score of that one with Carolina on top. So, we talked about the 1 seed and how the Bucs not getting the job done today definitely affects their chances at the 1 seed. And, of course, home field advantage throughout the playoffs. But I think something that a lot of Tampa Bay fans can still feel confident about is the division race. Because with the Saints loss today, I know Carolina's doing their thing, but I don't really think that they're going to swing back and compete with us, especially they still have to play the Bucs twice this year. And, the Falcons just absolutely decimated by Dallas today. What are your boys' thoughts on the division race? James, I wanted to get your thoughts.
Yeah, I would say that the Bucs are definitely still the favorites to win the division right now. And that's also another thing to where for everybody who's freaking out, right, saying, oh, man, this is over. I mean, you look at the situation right now as it stands for the other teams in the NFC South. The Bucs are still the favorites, right? I don't think that that's going to be any doubt for that. The Saints, they're in a really tough situation now. They just lost 2 in a row, right? So they're in a tough situation now with Trevor Siemian and Taysom Hill and whatever they got going on. The Falcons, they just got beaten down by the Cowboys. And the Panthers, while they do have Cam Newton back, is it too little too late, in terms of their chances of trying to make a push for the playoffs. So, I think the Bucs are still in a really, really good spot for the division. I still expect them to win the division. I think that should be the expectation.
Oh, 100%. I mean, obviously that's the expectation within the locker room, and these players go out and expect to win the game every single week. But I will tell you, as far as the expectations of players goes, our buddy Silverback Danny brought it up in the live chat. Makes a great point here. He says, talent is not enough to win games. They depend too much on their star players. Again, with the hero ball, fundamental football is severely lacking. And before this game, we said that, the Bucs have this uncanny ability of having such a stacked roster that you can go into most games and you can out-talent football teams. But when a team shows up to play and they do not care who's lined up across from them, like Washington did today, if the fundamentals aren't there, that's the result you're going to get. A 29-19 loss against a 2-6 football team when you're the defending Super Bowl champions. But I think While we're looking at the silver lining, as pissed off as I am about this loss, as much as I wish the Bucs were 7-2 at this point in the season, they were 7-5 at the break last year. They had lost 3 out of their last 4 at that rate. It wasn't looking good for Tampa Bay, but with the position they're in now, I'm glad they got humbled again this week. Like, I don't know how much, I don't know how humbled you can get against the Saints, because that team has always had your number, right? It's not necessarily shocking whenever the Bucs lose to the Saints, regardless of if they have a Super Bowl the year prior or not. But Washington, a 2-6 team that nobody picked to win this week. I mean, the upsets in 2021 have been, all over the place in the league. But I think the Bucs needed it, man, because like you said, a lot of these players might just be expecting things to happen, and then they don't happen, and then you lose football games, and that cannot happen. I mean, when you have a guy like Tom Brady in your locker room, it's probably not going to happen, but Tom Brady cannot keep track of 55-plus guys in a football facility every single day and be on top of what their mindset is headed into an individual game that week. So I think it's good that the Bucs got humbled again, and hopefully it's something that they can learn from, because whether they like it or not, time's kind of running out.
Yeah, the road thing is concerning to me, because it's looking more and more likely that they're going to have to go on the road, yet like they did last year, and win a playoff game. And I just don't know if they're going to be able to do that this year. I mean, this team, they 2 straight road losses. They're undefeated at home. So all 3 of their losses have been on the road. Like I said, I keep saying, they have not scored over 30 points. This is the number 1 ranked offense in the NFL. They haven't scored over 30 points on the road yet this season.
Number 1 ranked offense in the NFL coming into a road game against the worst secondary in the NFL.
Yeah, it's just and they still 19 points, 6 points in the first half. And I understand the turnovers and stuff, but still, you got to find success, and that's starting to concern me, because it's starting to become a trend now on the road. Can this team consistently put in good performances? Maybe if you win the division, you will have a home playoff game. But who knows after that? What if you're the 4 seed? Then you don't want to be going to L.A. or Green Bay, because at this rate you're not going to be the same team that you were last year. Like, it's not the same.
Yeah, I mean, the Bucs have proven that they can go the road warrior route. 3 straight road games to get to the home Super Bowl. That's awesome, but you don't want to be the team that does that every single year, because regardless of if you've done it before, nothing matters the next year, right? Whatever they did in 2020 does not matter. I do not care that they won 3 straight road games to get to the Super Bowl. Last year is not this year. And you'd prefer to take as convenient of a route as you possibly can when it comes to the playoffs. Let's go ahead and take a look back at the stat sheet today for what the Bucs were trying to do on offense. Leonard Fournette, really your only running back today, 11 carries for 47 yards, and no touchdowns for him. Gio Bernard got 1 carry for 4 yards.
Who's missing on that sheet right there?
Yeah, Ronald Jones did not get any action at all today, and I know we kind of talked on the pregame show about maybe expecting that 1-2 punch. I know I kind of expected Leonard Fournette to get most of the load, and I think the Bucs have shown that they trust him in that capacity. Catching the football today, not so much. But yeah, Ronald Jones was a complete no-show, and that was a little surprising, I think, especially when we saw them commit to the run early.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of it's about matchups, but I just noticed that he didn't show up. Like, I don't know if it's because we're here, you're not paying as close attention, but yeah, didn't even register a stat. We'll just wait and see the snap count, see if he even got in the game, but it's crazy to me that he didn't even have a carry really, and Leonard Fournette didn't really have it today, right? He made a few nice catches in the second half, but in the first half he was shaky, just didn't really have it.
Yeah, I think in the case of Ronald Jones, it was just definitely there were no situations to where he was going to be able to get out there, right? Because they trust Giovanni Bernard and Leonard Fournette more in passing down situations. They trust Leonard Fournette more as a runner in rushing down situations. They were playing from behind literally from the start of the game.
Everybody look out, the train's coming through.
Right, the Fournette Express.
We have literally got
it's the Fournette
whole
Express
train going along the side here, so bear with us for a minute.
No, but I just think the reason Jones didn't get out there was because of the fact that there was no plays for him. If he were to come in as a change of pace runner, that's one thing, but it couldn't really run because they were down the entire game, So that's what I think might have led to him not getting playing time in this one.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. I mean, I'm sure that if they would have committed to the run more than they already did, and they're burning clock, with Washington already burning the clock the way that they did, I don't know if you guys have it in front of you. I might be able to find it here in a second, but I want to look at the time of possession in this game. So we'll go down team stats one by one here. 320 total yards for the Washington football team, 273 for Tampa Bay, 220 passing yards for the Bucs, 226 for Washington, 53 on the ground for Tampa, 94 for Washington. 23 total first downs for Washington, 14 for the Bucs. Yeah, 11 for 19 on third down for the Washington football team, while the Bucs only had 40%, going 4 for 10. And time of possession, take a look at this. 20 minutes and 52 seconds for Tampa Bay, 39 minutes and 8 seconds for the football team, and 10 of those coming at the very end of the game.
It's going to be skewed a little bit, right? But, I mean, you look at how they lost the game. They lost the turnover battle, right? They lost the time of possession, and they lost on third down. That's, that's it right there. If you want to see 3 reasons why they lost this game, that's it. And they were close on a few turnovers, right? They were close to taking the ball away a few times, but being close, close only counts.
That fumble.
Yeah.
That fumble in the second half, I think. I don't remember which receiver it was. I think it was one of the tight ends for Washington, but Jordan Whitehead was there to make the tackle.
His forearm was down,
Yeah, his elbow hit the ground. They called him down. Pick up a 1. Could have been a fumble. That would have been huge for Tampa Bay. But let's go back to the box score really quickly. I just want to give some of these guys their credit. Mike Evans, your leading receiver with only 2 catches on the day, 62 yards and a touchdown, which officially means that Mike Evans is tied with Mike Allstott for the most franchise touchdowns in Tampa Bay Buccaneer history. So with that being said, Big 13 is going to be in the record books for a very long time. 1 more touchdown, and he is the Buccaneers' all-time touchdown leader, which is pretty damn cool, talking about the Hall of Fame pace that he has been on. But it took a while for Mike Evans to show up today. He had that huge touchdown catch right when they needed it. He got a lot of yak on that one. We were messing around with Tony Baloney on that. But, aside from that, I think Washington did a really good job of shutting him down today, and that's what made it even more tough for the Bucs to get anything going on offense.
Yeah, it really was a non-factor, right? He had that catch when they got the field goal at the end of the half. He had the 22-yard catch and then the 40-yard touchdown. Just really a quiet game from Mike Evans besides those 2 splash plays. And they need more from him. They need more from Chris Godwin. The tight ends, we'll get into. Karen Brake caught a touchdown. Did O.J. Howard even play in this game? Didn't really seem like it. They need more. Obviously, missing Antonio Brown and Rob Gronkowski. Clearly, you're seeing it. The value of those 2 guys, I think, specifically Antonio Brown. Right, I think having that other third number 1 wide receiver, I know it's a luxury, but having that guy is just so huge, and they're really missing him. So hopefully he can come back soon. But yeah, I'm not really gonna, say too much about it because it wasn't good enough by the receiving core, by the offensive line. Ali Marpet, I thought, got dominated today by Jonathan Allen.
Yeah, it was a rough afternoon for most of this offensive line as well.
The quarterback, the tight end room, whoever, the entire offense just didn't do enough.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and take a look at the rest of the receivers here. Chris Godwin, the guy who was a game-time decision, ultimately suited up to play. 7 catches on the afternoon, 57 yards for him. And we saw Chris Godwin get involved in the short pass game a lot. Seems like that screen pass is really something the Bucs like to call every now and again, and they were calling the hell out of it today. Leonard Fournette, actually, I think the most targeted receiver on the team today. He had 8 catches, led the team in catches, 45 yards for Leonard Fournette. So when you look at his day as a whole, he had 92 overall yards. I guess you can't be too upset. But again, like you said, regardless of what it says in the box score, those guys just didn't do enough. So I guess that's what you have to take away from that. Jalen Darden as well, 1 catch for 29 yards. He was returning, and he did go down. Did you guys ever see him come back into the football game?
Not that I saw, no.
So Jalen Darden went down with an injury. D. Delaney was down, but ultimately did come back in and finish up the game. And then the big one, literally the big one, Vita Vea at the very end of the game, if not the last play, the second to last play, left with a leg injury, and he had to be carted off, which is obviously not a very welcome sight for a lot of Bucs fans. So the latest that we've heard from Bruce Arians is that it is a knee injury. Do not know the severity of it, but obviously you're hoping to get a guy like that back as quick as you can. But that's, aside from the loss on the schedule today, I think that's probably the biggest loss this Bucs team had was Vita Vea going down.
Yeah, it's a concerning situation, right? I mean, being without Vita Vea again would not be good, especially considering, I mean, he's not getting a ton of stats, right, in terms of numbers on a sheet. But Vita Vea is making an impact every single game he's been out there, and obviously it'd be a huge loss for the Buccaneers defense, much like it was last year. You'd look for the same exact guys to step up if they need to, but once any updates on that come out, we'll all have you covered on those updates when they are made available.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and close things out with some of the good things we can talk about. I do want to highlight some of the performances on defense because, as we talked about, I think the defense is the reason the Bucs were in this game for as long as they were. And a guy who stepped up this week who really kind of needed to, I thought, was Devin White. 2 sacks on the day for 45, 13 total tackles. And, I mean, he was lacking in pass coverage every now and again, but that's almost what you've come to expect from Devin White. But what were your thoughts on Devin White? 5 total sacks for this defense, which, again, still doesn't seem like it was enough. But, overall, were there any guys that stood out to you on the defensive side of the ball?
When he told me that they had 5 sacks, I was shocked. It didn't feel like they had 5 sacks, But, Devin White had 2 of them, and he had a nice day. And it was really nice to see him have that nice day because of the rough day he had in New Orleans, right? So it's nice to see a little bit of a bounce back from him. Levante David, I thought both linebackers had a nice day. And, Shaq Barrett, Jason Pierre-Paul were kind of invisible. They didn't really do too much today. And the Bucs, it seemed like when the Bucs got pressure on Taylor Heineke, he was able to control himself a little bit better than Brady did. When Washington got pressure on the Bucs.
The big difference between Taylor Heineke and Tom Brady, with all due respect to Brady, is that Heineke, he doesn't exactly have the wheels that Brady does, right? Like, I don't know if he's really got the legs that Brady can and evades pressure in the pocket, but he showed them off a little bit today.
Yeah, he did, and it seemed like it was making the entire Bucs offense uncomfortable, and it just seemed like Washington thrived when there was pressure. So, the defense kept them in this game. This would have been a blowout if the defense allows 2 touchdowns instead of 2 field goals on them 2 opening drives. So, the defense did what they needed to do in the first half. Second half, it wasn't good enough, and it's a team loss. It's not, we can't pin it on one person. We just can't. It is truly a team loss.
So the next time Tampa Bay will play football, it's next Monday night against the New York Giants, another NFC East team. So we talked about the benefits of playing a division like the NFC East at the beginning of the year, and you've already lost to Washington, so hopefully they can get things together against New York here, which I think obviously they can, right? The expectations for this team are so high right now, even from within the organization, you have to expect that they're going to drop 50 on New York. But I guess we also expected that they were going to.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, after a game like today, you really don't know, but you got to take it for what it is. And the Buccaneers are 6-3. With a primetime game coming up, it'll be interesting to see how they respond. And it's primetime at home. Yep, so back in Raymond James Stadium, where they have yet to lose a game this season. So all the ingredients are there for the Buccaneers to go out there and hopefully do what they do best, which is win football games in 2021. But I don't know. I wanted to get your guys' closing thoughts before we wrap up here for the Can of Fire watch party. Evan, you go ahead first.
Yeah, it really makes a game versus the Giants next week a must-win. If you go in, like I was talking to him, right? You basically said it. Big difference between 6-4 and 7-3. There's a huge difference between those two. And, I mean, you lose the game to the Giants, you lose 3 in a row. I mean, I got to start to think that you're just not a very good football team. You let the Giants come into your house and beat you after losing this game. Yeah, I got to think you're not that good. It's a huge pivotal game. It's at home where they've been very successful, right? And we'll see if they get the job done.
Well, I think that, 3 losses in a row, right? To 3 teams that are, quite frankly, I mean, we know 2 of them aren't going to make the playoffs potentially there with the Giants and the Washington football team. Now you may even question if the Saints are going to make the playoffs given their situation. You lose to all 3 of those types of teams in a row. That's not a good look. I said that, earlier in this stream that, sometimes these good teams do have situations like that. That's 1 or 2 times in the time span of, the entire year. Let alone it happening 3 times in a row, where you have these games that you really should have probably won that you lost. Those don't happen to good teams. So like Evan said, like how we talked about it earlier, next game, and, obviously people may say, well, that's extreme, to think of it that way. But, like, it could be, a very team-defining game next week. Like what are the Bucs? Are they a team that's going to be a wild card team, and win what is not a great division and then get bounced in round one? Or are they a team that really does have a legitimate chance to go all the way to a Super Bowl? That's kind of where you have to figure out that identity, and I think some of those things may have to get answered come next week versus the Giants.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head as far as, what next week's game is going to be. But I think it's ultimately up to the Bucs at this point to define what type of team they're going to be for the rest of the season. It is up to them to go out there against the Giants and prove to the entire country, because this is a primetime game, is this a good team going through a rough patch, or are these just a bunch of frauds, right? Are the Bucs just a bunch of jerks? That's what they're going to have to prove to a lot of people, including themselves, next week against the Giants. So, truthfully, we can say whatever we want or whatever we think is going to happen, but it's up to Tampa Bay. It's up to the players on the field, in that locker room. It's up to the coaches on the sideline to decide what type of team they're going to be going forward. Bruce Arians has said all the time that when it comes to losses like today, we just don't accept that anymore. Well, show us, Bruce. Go out there, don't accept it, and kick New York's ass here next week. Like, you've got, they've got 8 days to prepare starting today, so you took 2 weeks to prepare for Washington to ultimately play like trash, take 8 days to play a team, probably a worse team, in the same division, and just go beat them the way that everybody expected you to beat Washington today. That's my biggest takeaway. It's up to the Bucs to define what kind of team they want to be from this point on.
Yeah, it's gonna. This next week, I think it's gonna. Are they a contender or a pretender? Right, and if they lose, I'm gonna come on here and say, yeah, they are a pretender. This team is not good, but if they win, and you can't just win. You can't win like they won on Monday Night Football against the Giants last year. You can't win. You can't win with a 2-point conversion that's failed. You got to go out there.
Wins are wins.
Yeah, but after a loss like today, you got to go out there and you got to have a 10-point win. You got to have a 10-point win. You got to have a defining win, and sort of like you said, prove to the whole world that it's a good team in a rough patch. It's not a fraud team that's finally showing their true colors.
Yeah, you got to be convincing, not just for the fans, but also probably yourself at this point, right? You gotta have a convincing win, because you're 2 games in a row down to teams that you really should have beaten, or at least been more competitive than what you were, and they need to have a convincing win, point blank, simple as that. Otherwise, who knows what's going to happen for the second half of this season. I'm not going to say they're going to go on a losing streak or anything, but people who are saying like, this is just a wild card team, those kinds of people would have more reason to be believed, I think.
Yeah. Well, regardless of anything that happens throughout these next couple of weeks, I want to say a quick thank you to our friends here at Barriehaus Beer Company, hosting us until literally closing time. I think they shut the doors at 6 o'clock today, but thank you to everybody who showed up to the first ever Cannon Fire Watch Party. It really was a great turnout. Shout out to our guy Tony Baloney, Mikey Kelly, Maya coming in, Bucket with your girl, Brandon checking us out. Anybody who came up today and just talked to us, said hi, shook our hand, had a beer, watched the game. Even though it wasn't the outcome we expected, it was really, really fun to get out here with some fellow Bucs fans, and hopefully with the way that this thing turned out, we can try and plan some more for the future.
Thanks a lot to Joe and the people at Wingbox as well for hooking us up with some great food. Fantastic stuff. Seemed like everybody loved it, and check them out too. Wingbox, they're all over the place. They're traveling all over the place. So if you live in Florida, I'm sure they're going to be coming near you soon.
So, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that's just about going to do it for this week's episode of the Cannon Fire Podcast. Thank you so much for checking out this week's episode live on YouTube. Shout out to all of our people in the chat. Silverback Danny, Dub, Cardi, Willie Beeman, the moderator holding it down, Tony Saylor, of course, and anybody else who I may have missed. We really, truly do appreciate your guys' support. Check out the show on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Actually, the follow train's coming through. I don't know if you heard it, but Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Cannon Fire Podcast. Best place to go for updates on the show and, of course, Buccaneer news as it happens. Speaking of Bucs news as it happens, you can follow my co-host Evan on Instagram at Bucs_daily, the #1 Buccaneers fan page on Instagram. You can also find him on Twitter at EvanNFL. Last but not least, you can find my co-host, honorary third member of the show, James Hill. Might not have found time to get him through a table today on the stream, but it's his birthday tomorrow, so make sure you subscribe to his channel. Tell him happy birthday.
He seems pretty sturdy.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think it's, what, a 6-footer?
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah.
He'll be good. He'll go right through. It'll be fine. Quick shout out. Happy birthday, James. Happy early birthday. You're ancient. My present to you is gonna be a walker. All right, I'm sending it down. You're gonna be getting it by the end of the week. So
Okay.
all right,
That's fair. A walker, not just because I'm old, but also because I'm going to be put through a table.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
We're gonna have to get him out of here on the backboard, man. But thank you again for everybody who helped make this possible. We had a really, really good time for our first ever watch party, and again, maybe we'll plan something like this soon. Had a lot of good conversations today with a lot of great people. We are also back to our regular schedule, by the way, so if you guys want to jump in early on the Cannon Fire Mailbag Show, which is going to be happening on Wednesday, I believe, go ahead and send us an email, cannonfirepodcast@gmail.com. We'll probably put up some social media stuff so you can follow us over there. And then follow myself on social media, Instagram and Twitter. All of those are it's Redicus, Rhettaks. I'm a little tired. I'm a little out of it. But if you follow me at Redicus, I will follow you back. I am your host, Rhett Matthew, signing off from my co-host, Evan Wanish, and our special guest, James Hill. From our friends at Barriehaus Beer Company in beautiful Ybor City, thank you once again. And shout out again to our guys at the Wingbox Food Truck. Really was delicious. Thank you to everybody who came out today. And we'll talk to you guys next time. Until then, and as always, go Bucs.